Sports, Clicks, and Politics. With your host, Berenson, and Shawn Hannon. Welcome to episode 122 of Sports, Clicks, and Politics. I am Shawn Hannon, joined as always by the handsome and charming Mr. Ben Hussong. Mr. Hussong.
Yes, Mr. Hannon.
It seems like we're back on a regular schedule all of a sudden.
I know.
Back-to-back weeks.
It's good to be here.
How was your weekend?
My weekend was good.
Tell the audience about it. Was it a typical Griswold / Hussong weekend? Did you do any traveling or yurtvilles?
No yurts. I don't think we did much traveling. We had a soccer game for my son, so that was fun. Had some friends over.
When you
Saturday.
mean fun, do you mean like the game was fun or like the whole thing was fun?
It's fun watching my son play soccer.
Sure,
I'm not a soccer fan at all, but it's fun watching him. So we had a good time with that. Had some people over Saturday. Tried making homemade French onion soup.
Okay. How'd that go? I thought about that, yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah.
And obviously, I've been messing around with sourdoughs lately, so I made a sourdough pizza. Also amazing. I went 2 for 2 this week, and it was a big deal.
Wow, Chef Hussong.
Pretty proud of myself for going 2 for 2
Chef
on this.
Hussong. That's nice.
We're getting somewhere.
Maybe someday when we have a bunch of guests in here, you can do the spread.
Heck yeah. I'm in.
French onion soup.
It was so good.
I believe it.
Sorry, how was your weekend?
Weekend was good. I have this is a what I'll call a slow period of our season since we're a largely outdoor focused venue, and
sure,
we also reside in Syracuse, New York, which is the opposite of outdoor venue. Typical
more or less.
climate ambiance, I guess. So, but we do have we still have actually a couple holiday parties still here going, but a slow time of year for me. So plenty of time for me to lay around, do nothing, read the news, be disgusted with the world.
That's good.
Yeah. I don't know if it's
needs
good
a
or
hobby.
not, but it's a terrible hobby. Well, our weekends were different as far as the NFL goes.
I'm sorry.
Before we get to that, I remind you, everybody, to leave a comment here. Let us know what you think about any of the topics that we are discussing here below. But before you do that, please leave a 5-star rate and review for your audio podcast. 5-star would be ideal.
Like and share.
Yeah. Not like a 1-star like the Dallas Cowboys, but a 5-star. I saw that in the meme someplace. It's like it's not a logo, it's a rating.
That's amazing.
It's a 1-star, yeah.
People
love to hate other teams. They come up with some great stuff. So.
Oh, for sure.
So it's fun. But subscribe to the channel, either on YouTube or on Rumble. We are broadcasting live on both today.
Nice.
For as long as YouTube will have us.
Give me time.
Yeah. We are also waiting still on the release of the Fauci files, and I had already gone ahead and created a Fauci files graphic for us today. So hopefully they'll come out between now and like 12:45. That'd be ideal.
I'm on board.
If we can just do live tweeting of the Fauci files. Anyway.
Oh, that would be fun. Just read them as we go.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So hopefully that transpires here, but we got some other things to talk about too as well. So before we get into that, please, again, help the show out. Help us fight the algorithms there. And again, like and share the video to all your friends and family. So, all right. So let's talk about the NFL playoffs, Mr. Hussong. I'm not sure if there's a right time to talk about anything Damar Hamlin here at this point, but things are much better today than they were during the game that day. So, but the NFL went on, I guess. People were not happy about some of the decisions that were made. There was no right decision, so somebody was going to have to make a decision. Somebody was probably going to get screwed. The things, they fell where they fell. So
it is.
I don't fault anybody for having to kind of adjust on the fly like that. You can't plan for that. So, but the Bills are into the playoffs. The Steelers are not into the playoffs.
Tough break.
Very, very close. Well, I mean, the fact that they were even mathematically alive with 5 minutes left in the NFL regular season is still kind of mind-boggling.
It's amazing.
It's pretty mind-boggling. They've gone through, a weird transition there, and I guess credit to Mike Tomlin again for just holding the team together and not being a dumpster fire. So, but no playoffs. 9-8 continues the never finished below 500 in his entire NFL head coach. It is crazy. So, but some of those, even though they were obviously just like this year, they were 500 and did not make the playoffs. They actually had I know they had at least a 9-win season where he didn't make the playoffs. But then they also got to the Super Bowl at 8-8. So I think it was 8-8. But anyway, so either way, NFL season over, playoffs beginning.
Yep.
We have the seeding. We have the matchups.
Yep.
Any initial hot takes from the weekend results? Anything surprise you? We see the the Seahawks. The Bucs are under 500, right?
No, they're 9-8.
Oh, did they? Wait, okay.
They won out.
That's great.
Made it to a winning record to host a playoff.
And then the Seahawks got in too, right? I think that was the one that snuck in at the end. So any, again, takes from the weekend or initial playoff thoughts?
Yeah.
Bills or otherwise?
Bills or otherwise. All right, so number one, I think obviously Cincinnati is a far better team than Baltimore, but this is the NFL, and it's very hard to beat any team 2 weeks in a row. So that game, I think, will be more interesting than anyone's expecting it to be because the Ravens, despite their quarterback issues, are still a decent football team, and the Bengals are a very good football team, but not invincible, not like they've been unbeatable. The Seahawks being into the playoffs instead of the Packers is a loss for football fans everywhere. No offense to Seattle. But if you give me the option of I want to watch an interesting story in the playoffs, give me Aaron Rodgers at 38 over Geno Smith at any age.
Well, I mean, isn't that Aaron Rodgers? I mean, isn't that the Packers' fault, I guess?
Oh, for sure.
Right, okay.
All right, so I was having this conversation, and this is my hot take of the day. So how much does Davante Adams regret his decision to go to Las Vegas now?
Well, I mean, it's only 1 year into the decision, right? So early on, it's not great. But
that's my point. Like, couldn't he have waited until this offseason and then gone?
Possibly.
Right. So
I don't know. I don't remember the details, but yeah.
But instead, so he goes to Las Vegas where he's going to play with his college quarterbacks, who's also one of his closest friends, near the area where he grew up. I believe he grew up in the Bay Area, so he was a Raiders fan growing up, even though now they're in Las Vegas. And you got Josh McDaniels. You got this exciting new team coming together, right? And instead, you go, what did they go, 5-12?
Yeah, they were not good all year.
They got wrecked. Derek Carr is getting benched and cut if he doesn't get traded. Meanwhile, the Green Bay Packers finally started to put something together despite having a wide receiver core made up of 2 rookies and 4 journeyman NFL veterans who are good at every part of what the wide receiver position except for catching passes and getting open. They're great blockers. They're great at knowing the plays. They don't make mistakes, but they're just not that talented.
Randall Cobb can get open and catch the ball, then he just falls down.
Well,
so,
I mean, that's a problem, right? So that's what they kept saying about the Packers receivers is like they block so well. That's why they run so well, et cetera, et cetera. But imagine if Davante Adams was still on the Packers this season, how different this season would have gone for Green Bay. And I think that was the piece they were missing. Whereas with Las Vegas, if Davante Adams plays in Green Bay, they make it to the playoffs, they go X amount deep. I don't know how far they go, but they go. And then at the end of the year, he goes, hey, guys, I'm not re-signing. I'm going to go play in Las Vegas. Who cares? And then he's got to make the decision of, like, well, Derek Carr's not there anymore, so do I really want to play in Las Vegas, or do I want to go play with Derek Carr? I think that would have changed a lot.
I mean, all your points there are basically football decisions, right? So I think he made a lifestyle decision over the football decision.
Make the lifestyle decision 1 year later. Just one more
What if it wasn't
year,
available?
And you had a legit chance.
If you have a new coaching regime in Raiders, which you're probably going to.
You're telling me at any time Davante Adams says, I want to go to the Raiders,
but it has
and
to
Josh
work, right?
McDaniels is like, nah, I'm good, man. We're building a culture.
I'm just saying it all has to work. A year later, everything is different. It's like running for president when you're on the top, right? Like when DeSantis should run for president regardless. Like this, he is literally on top.
I get it, but this isn't something where you only have to make a decision every 4 years. You have the option in Green Bay of just saying, hey, guys, I'm not signing a long-term contract here. I'm going to play out my contract, and I know there's a risk of injury, and I get that. But still, you're Davante Adams. Even if you get hurt, you've already made a ton of money. Somebody's going to pay you a ton of money. Even if you tore your ACL in the last game of the year, somebody's still going to pay you when you come back.
I'm still of the opinion that there was a measurable NFL crowd who was unconvinced that Davante Adams was other than something that came along with Aaron Rodgers.
Those people are not smart.
I'm just saying.
Because, listen, Aaron Rodgers is amazing, But
Davante Adams wasn't always amazing. Like early on in his career, I think it takes receivers probably a few years to just get up to speed. unless you're just faster than everybody else, and bigger, like Randy Moss, like those kind of freak athletes where they can just out athlete you.
Right.
But like if you're just and I don't think Devontae Adams is like a freak athlete. I think he's a great athlete.
No.
I mean, whatever. But I mean, he's not.
He's your
Randy Moss,
prototypical receiver, but he has great speed, which is very rare. You don't usually find somebody that big who's that fast, and that's what his big advantage is. So I just think, look, Aaron Rodgers is one of the top 10, maybe top 12 quarterbacks to ever play football. And if this was his last season, what an embarrassment of a last season this turned out to be. And I blame the Packers organization for even going into the season like this. And I get he signed a massive contract. But from everything I gather, he signed a massive contract under the impression Davante Adams was also going to get signed. And the Packers did plan on that, but Davante Adams came and said, hey, I'm not going to go long-term here. I want to go you could trade me.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have that information as early as possible. Maybe they did, and they just didn't.
Maybe they thought they could talk him out of it.
Yeah, maybe.
But I can't help but wonder what if. What if they had waited 1 year? All right, let's shift gears to the Bills now.
Yeah.
I can tell you it was almost nostalgia, and nostalgia is not the right word because this was only like a year or two ago. Watching John Brown catch a touchdown pass from Josh Allen gave me all kinds of feels like, oh, I miss him. He was so fun. And then that stupid touchdown dance he does where he just throws his body about and Josh Allen does it right back. Like, this is what made this team so fun to watch is like they're just having fun. They're having a great time. And the kick returns by Nyheim Hines were utter insanity. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around how that happened.
Yeah.
2 in a game under the current rules.
It's Devin Hester-like.
It was a difference in the game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you don't know that the Bills wouldn't have scored on those drives, but I mean, sometimes those can be detrimental to the defense because all of a sudden you're like, hey, luckily the first one was the opening kickoff, so like that didn't matter. Didn't really play in the thing, but sometimes you can be like, oh shit, I got to go back out into the field. Whatever. So
no, it was a touching moment, especially after everything happened. Like it was a very cool thing, and I was happy for the Bills that they won it. Also, as a Bills fan, my next door neighbors are big Patriots fans. I obviously despise the Patriots, but I'm an empathetic human being. So every now and then I'm like, what if? And then I thought about it. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to have to play the Patriots 2 weeks in a row as a Bills fan. I just it's still Bill Belichick. I know the talent level is not what it once was, and Mac Jones is certainly not Tom Brady. But I still have PTSD from about 15 straight years of watching my team get curb stomped by that team.
Only because I play them a lot in DraftKings. They score a lot of defensive touchdowns and special teams touchdowns. So those things can just flip a game at any point, right? So yeah, you're probably right. You might have dodged a bullet or at least the potential upset coming out of the defense of the Patriots anyway, which I think would have been a wild card. But
yeah, not that Miami's like a slouch of an opponent, but if you give me the option of who I want to play in Orchard Park, the Dolphins. I'd rather play the Dolphins in Orchard Park because they're a warm weather team. All their team stats, the difference between home and away and sunshine versus winter is remarkable how much worse they play in the snow and in negative conditions. And I want to say Sunday of next week's going to be about 25 to 30 degrees. It's going to be cold. It's going to be windy in Orchard Park for sure. That bodes well for the 6'5", 260-pound cannon arm Josh Allen over, I don't know who it's going to be, whether it's the 5'11", 180-pound soaking wet Tua Tagovailoa or Teddy Bridgewater, who I don't even want to talk smack to Teddy Bridgewater. I love Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's just a great dude. But Tua, I could care less about.
Is Brian Cox still alive?
I almost said I hope not, and then I realized, wow, that was that's inner demon football fan right there. No, Brian, I'm just kidding. I hope you are alive. It was a joke.
I just don't remember.
I don't remember either. I just remember him walking off.
Can we invite him to the
everybody
game?
The finger.
He was fun.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't have any hot takes for the I don't know, potential Super Bowl, whatever. I still think it's the same kind of small handful of teams that we talked about all year. So
I'm looking forward to the Chargers-Jacksonville game. I think that is a very interesting matchup.
I mean, it's always good to see fresh blood in the playoffs, kind of like that. So
yeah, and it'll be fun to watch. I'm trying to think on the NFC if there's anybody I'm super excited about in the opening round. Cowboys-Buccaneers should be interesting.
Yeah, that should be fun.
That should be a good game.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
That's probably it. Yeah. I don't know. We'll
That's
see what happens. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to shift gears, but I mentioned this to you on the way in, and I'm hoping I think I adjusted the things so that I can make sure that I get my sound through to the folks here today. But I asked you if you know, and I don't know, and I'll ask the folks out here. Did you hear that Russia claims, this is Russia, the country, the military, whatnot, they claim to have shot down a UFO, Mr. Hussong.
It's about time.
I know. Now, I know we're going to talk about Bitcoin in a second here, but
Thank God.
So this is just a small 1-minute clip. I don't know if you know Matt Kors. He largely covers the stock market, but he kind of made his fame in the GameStop AMC run up, and kind of was on the squeeze early, and kind of did some live YouTubing about it. And now he's got a Rumble deal. So
all right.
We missed that boat. Anyway, so he puts out random stuff here, and this is just like a minute clip of him talking about said UFO shoot down here. So hopefully this all works out for you guys at home.
Allegedly Russia has shot down a UFO. That thing? What do you? Three different camera angles. This is camera number 2. I believe it. Allegedly
I believe it.
Russia has shot down.
But anyway, so before we get into Bitcoin, any hot takes of Russia claiming to have shot down a UFO? We got 3 different camera angles, thankfully, triangulated perfectly so we could watch it.
Somebody better call Will Smith, see what he's got going on. Like, apparently we're ready to go to war with an alien species, and he's the only man for the job.
Now, obviously, people are claiming that Russia shot down this was a Ukrainian drone in real life. That's the explanation of the actual video footage that we're looking at. But, I mean, the UFO claim is way better.
Yeah, that's boring. I don't care about Ukraine.
I mean, it's only a matter of time. We've already admitted that their existence, right?
We've acknowledged that we've seen some and that we can't
UAPs, they call them, right? UAP.
But like what you and I talked about, was once the government acknowledged they exist, immediately we're both like, all right, then it's nonsense. What is it really? Like, is this just advanced U.S. technology that we've got?
It's a false flag.
Propulsion systems
This is
and
false.
everything
This
else.
is a total psyop from the beginning. With incoming CGI alien attack that we're all going to fall for.
Except that, like, when they had to release some of this data and information, they came out and they said, like, these people are claiming things that there's a lot of veracity to, but the government went out of its way to trash them and just to, like, call them all rubes and idiots and everything else, as if they're a bunch of morons who can't be trusted, when the government's like, oh, we don't want people to panic. So I don't know what to make of this. If they shot down a UFO, I don't know if that's good or bad. I hope we didn't just start the first intergalactic war, because I don't think we're ever ready for that.
Yeah, no.
But we'll see. Like, maybe we got to worry about that now. I don't know.
Galvanizing moment for the populace.
Nothing would bring us together quite like somebody else coming in and hitting our rock with a bomb.
I beg to differ. We would still argue who we want to put us in chains. We do that now. So, real quickly, Mr. Hussong.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is above 17,000 for the first time in 2023.
Oh boy. Well,
it's been a while.
I mean, 2023 is only 9 days old, so yeah, I guess that's not terribly shocking.
All crypto is up, which I find a little bit movement, right? Because it had been pretty much flat at around 16. I don't know. I think it got a low as maybe as 15.8 or 15.9, but it's been basically 16.2 to 16.8 for I feel like a month, maybe even longer. And so, I don't know. Just figured I would bring that to attention. So everybody who hasn't noticed, if you look above Ben Hussong's head there, you will see that the Bitcoin is at right now $17,369.
Well,
up $250 the last day here. So
Jim Cramer has some advice for all you people thinking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
Ready.
6 hours ago. Good chance, all caps, again, and all caps, to get out of crypto and scale out of Chinese stocks, as neither can be trusted.
Well, buy crypto, that means. I think that's, when you look in the decoder ring of the Jim Cramer decoder ring, that's what it comes out. Buy Bitcoin. So, take that for what you will, I guess. Mr. Cramer has never been wrong before.
There is an actual ETF called the Inverse Cramer ETF. That's a thing that exists, which, let's just be real, is hilarious. So, I don't disagree with him on Chinese stocks, actually, because Chinese stocks are notoriously overinflated, and China's got problems, all right? Like, you think we got monetary problems. Our monetary problems are nothing compared to their monetary problems. But the flip side, cryptocurrency, I don't know. I think that all these people are claiming it's a slam dunk that the regulators are going to come in and clean house. I mean, what the hell has our government ever done efficiently to make you think they're going to be effective at this? I don't see it. Maybe. I'm not ruling it out.
If the government sees a scam, they're just trying to figure out how to get in on it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I figure I'd bring it to everybody's attention since we played the Bitcoin game here at the Sports Clicks and Politics. So, I don't know. Kramer says buy Bitcoin, so
no, he says don't buy Bitcoin.
Well, he says don't buy Bitcoin. Don't buy Bitcoin, but that means time to buy.
I mean, historically speaking,
not financial advice.
If you buy what he says to sell, you have a better than 50% chance of it making money. That's an actual stat that's real.
Nice. All right. Speaking of crypto, I wish I could get these. I wonder if the new setup has minimized my ability to carry over the graphics here. But for those watching at home, I will try to figure this out at some point. But speaking of crypto, Mr. Hussong, Sam Bankman-Fried, we touched on the fact that he was arraigned, I think, on Monday, like basically right before the show started or whatnot. But I want to bring this to your attention, a small nuance of the arraignment. According to Intercity Press, I like this guy. He does reporting for only the Southern District of New York. So he goes in. You're not allowed to record anything in the court. So Matthew Russell Lee, Intercity Press, basically he's been banned. He got kicked out of he used to do this for the UN, but he got kicked out of the UN for covering some Ghislaine Maxwell stuff, actually. And so now he does this outside of the SDNY just on a regular. So he just basically covers everything that's happening in the court that day, which is kind of cool. Because a lot of shit happens in the SDNY if you haven't figured that out.
Sure.
And speaking of the SDNY, the Southern District of New York Courthouse, January 3rd, Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX was indicted in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, leading to his arrest in the Bahamas on December 12th. The extradition to the U.S. on December 21st. He was released on $250 million bond with requirement of cosigners. Here's the nuance, Mr. Hussong.
Oh, boy.
There was a motion with the judge, and he has kept this up so far, to keep the identities of those cosigners anonymous, in large part because they don't want to out his parents, apparently, as the cosigners. It seems most obvious that it's his parents, but that would lead to a question of where they're getting their $250 million to put up for a bond for their son, Sam Bankman-Fried. So Intercity Press filed a motion to actually get the name, so we'll see. I don't know. He files a motion pretty much in every one of these cases to try to get more information, which is just great. I love he plays the game. So,
listen, it's way more concerning is that it's not his parents.
Possibly,
then,
sure.
Now it's interesting.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Which, maybe they kept it at 2 to keep that and kept it anonymous to just for us, like people like me, to just jump to the conclusion automatically, and then really they're just playing me because it's Kevin O'Leary and Mark Cuban.
I like that he wants to keep $450 million stake in Robinhood so that he could pay his legal team.
This is just a clown show. But anyway, so who knows where this is going to go. We mentioned the fact that Carolyn Ellison and Gary Wang, both of his other people, flipped on him. So we'll see if they give out any actual juicy juice. But I don't know.
Well, of course they flipped on him. They were facing 100 years in prison. Like, this guy is a clown.
Yeah.
I love that they flipped on him. And I looked at the FTT on Yahoo Finance last week because I was curious. It's fantastic what actually, like, you watching the chart play out that way where it's like $20 up to 43, started having some trouble, went back down to 22, and then all of a sudden just went 19 cents. And that was something like 75 to 80% of the company's net worth was that token valued at $23 a token.
Yeah. Oh, that's how the whole thing basically started.
It's hilarious.
So, yeah.
And I mean, listen, I think this guy deserves the same level of empathy and understanding as Bernie Madoff. Maybe a little less. I mean, genuinely, I think that's about what this guy should be viewed as right now. And I get he's innocent until proven guilty, but that's only in the court of law. I'm telling you, as somebody following this story, not intimately closely, but close enough, there is no justifiable reason for this. There is no way this was all just an honest mistake and he didn't know. This was complete fraud. He just robbed people blind, left, right, and center. And for some reason, whether it's hubris, whether it's arrogance, whether it's stupidity, or whether it's justified, he felt like he was untouchable.
He almost got away with it.
If it wasn't for those meddling kids. Sorry, that was just too easy of a setup. But the reality is he wasn't worried about getting caught. He didn't bother to cover his tracks. He didn't bother, like, you're telling me, I get the girlfriend going along with it, but this guy, what was his name? The CTO? Gary Wang. He knew what he was doing was illegal. There's no way you could justify that. You only do that and leave it that blatant if you are under no fear of getting caught whatsoever.
Gary Wang sounds like the mole in this situation.
Yeah?
I mean, if you're going to set up two incompetents, like maybe Gary Wang's actually the CIA operation part of the whole thing and was like, hey, let's get these two kids. They're connected, and let's set this thing in motion. Seems most plausible to me anyway. What do you think?
I'm on board with that.
Okay.
I can certainly buy it. I think, though, that there's my point. If you and I were going to try to rob something, we'd at least try to cover our tracks. Like, even with Bernie Madoff.
I mean, they use Signal.
Bernie Madoff went out of his way to cover up and get away with for years so that it actually took some. The only reason he got caught, truly, was that even in 2008, when everything crashed, Bernie Madoff would have never gotten caught if he would have just said, I was using mortgage-backed securities, everything went to zero, and we lost all the money. We would have never known that Bernie Madoff had run the largest Ponzi scheme in history. Never, ever, ever, ever would have found that out if he had just done that, but he didn't. And he kept going with it, and that's how he got caught. And somebody, I remember testifying on Capitol Hill, said, I knew that Bernie Madoff was committing fraud. And they said, well, how could you have known that? They said, because I looked at his returns year after year, and it did this. That's not possible. It is not possible if you are investing on the up and up for the to just go up and never go down. So he could have gotten away with it because he was careful, uncovering his tracks and literally going in and covering things up and backdating everything.
Even the Pelosi's lost money the last year in Congress.
The owner of the Mets almost lost everything. The Pelosi's, my God. But these guys, they had no fear of getting caught. Now, again, that might be hubris. That might be stupidity. I'm more than willing to acknowledge those realities. Or maybe there was an actual reason they didn't worry about getting caught. Maybe they thought they had the right friends in high places, and they weren't at risk of getting caught.
Maybe they had some assurances from those friends in high places.
Right.
Who knows? All right, so let's touch on a story real quickly that you actually broke here on the show last week, Ben.
I broke a story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Virgin Islands Attorney General loses her job days after suing J.P. Morgan Chase in connection with Jeffrey Epstein probe. Go figure. So, the Virgin Islands top prosecutor, Attorney General Denise George, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who has been basically doggedly attacking the Epstein estate for compensation, among other things, who had recently filed a case against J.P. Morgan. The newly elected governor, I don't know if he was reelected or elected, but I saw a tweet where he was just like, I won, so thank everybody for voting for me, and that was in November-ish or October, I don't know, sometimes late last year. So newly elected or reelected Governor Byron somebody, I can't remember his name now, it probably is, if you look on the Epstein flight logs, his name's probably there. Albert Bryan.
All right.
Governor Albert Bryan fires the one person who's actually going after them. And this is the only reason why I brought it up, because when we broke the story, we didn't really know why 100%, but not, like they basically said, this guy's like, I didn't want her investigating this anymore. It was causing me problems. Like, what?
I love when they say the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
I love it.
I wonder, man, I don't know. It's just, as I said, nothing ever happens to any of these lizard people, so no. I don't know why I'm even, semi panties in a bunch about this, but like it's so out in the open. It like you just have to applaud their gall.
This is what I mean, like no fear of getting caught. There's a reason they have no fear of getting caught, because even when they get caught, nothing happens. Like, I fired this woman. Isn't it coincidental that you fired her right as she was about to investigate the largest bank in the world? No, that's exactly why I fired her. Wait. Are the claims without merit? No, it was just causing me headaches. I didn't think she was harassing them or doing anything illegal. It was just making my life harder.
He was literally upset the fact that she was doing her job.
Right. That's wild. That's it's like the idea of, don't you think it's odd that somebody took out an increased insurance policy just before their house burned down? Like, no, it happens all the time. It's not weird at all. It's just an odd coincidence. It's the same idea here. There's only one reason you fire this woman, and there's a reason that J.P. Morgan, There's a website. I brought it up on this show before. It's literally one that just tracks JP Morgan's crimes in real time, starting with the violations, then the misdemeanors, and the felonies. It breaks it down into categories, and there is so much on that website. It's crazy, including last time I checked, which was a year ago, there was 3 felonies. Not pending, not that they were being investigated for, completely found guilty. Jamie Dimon's been the head the entire time. Any talk of firing him? No, because I'm pretty sure most organizations, if you oversaw, committed 3 felonies and dozens of misdemeanor crimes in the same time frame, there would at least be a discussion on, hey, should we remove the person in charge? Because clearly they're doing illegal things. Nope. Just keep going. Press that button. Money printer go brrr, and away we go.
All right. Okay, let's move on to something that I don't think we've ever talked about here, and I don't actually have a video graphic of this, so I'm just going to move right into it. Read the headline. New York City Education Department blocks ChatGPT on school devices and networks. So ChatGPT is a open AI generator, and I pulled it up here because I thought we were going to be able to just do something fun real thing here, and I'll pull it up again. Chat OpenAI is, maybe I do hit it. Oh, we have it. Oh, no, sorry.
I'm getting highs and lows here, man.
I'm sorry. So it's at capacity right now. So many people are using it that I cannot use it live on the show. So, but it is a open artificial intelligence, open AI text generator, and the New York City schools are banning this because it's been able to write undetectably plagiarized essays and book reports and term papers and theses and all this other stuff, right? So obviously it's only banned on school devices and on school networks. So when you're home, you could clearly just use this, I guess, and print it out.
Right.
But now mind you, some people making a bigger deal out of this, and maybe they are, I don't know, but people had these same kind of scare tactics around Google itself, right? Like, and I'm not even saying
Wikipedia.
Right. And I'm not even saying that stuff hasn't played a role in education, because it probably has, but you should adopt it more than just ban it, right? So I'm guessing, and I think I actually read, now that I'm thinking about this, they could probably use it if they're like, hey, this is we're purposely using this in class as a thing, then they probably unblock it from the network and be able to allow people to do the thing on ChatGPT. But I don't know. Do you have any hot takes on AI taking over term papers? I mean, there's like a whole website out there. You could I remember back in the day where you could just download term papers on pretty much almost anything. People were selling them, whatever, back in the Napster days even, and some of this LimeWare stuff. There was literally stuff you could just download. It was crazy. But anyway, this takes it to a new level. It's instantaneously. I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff where, like, go ahead. I mean,
it reminds me of, like, when you say the term papers, remember the movie PCU? Yeah. Jeremy Piven. First off, you cannot find that movie. I have like 4 different streaming services, and I tried to search for it. The only place you can get it is on YouTube, and you have to click in a link in the comments to go to another site just to watch PCU, which is mind-blowing. But that aside, there's a scene in that movie where the one kid trips the computers and he crashes the servers, and everybody's term papers are lost. And so they're all freaking out, and he's like, all right, Jeremy Piven's like, I'm going to sell you term papers. We got them all in here. What's your major? I got economics. All right, here, this is your term paper. Here's yours. And the one kid walks up and he goes, what's your term paper on? And he goes, ancient Sanskrit. You're majoring in a 3,000-year-old dead language? It's like, yeah. Latin. It's the best I can do. Go away. And I always think of that whenever I hear term papers. But sorry, that was beside the point. Great movie. Look it up and watch it. It's fantastic. And as it turns out, like, completely omniscient of where the world was actually going to go to back in the 1990s.
You say you can't find it. Are you sure this is not part of like some Mandela effect and that movie didn't exist?
No, because I could find trailers online. I could find everything else, but I can't find any service where you can actually just watch the movie like you can every other movie that's ever been created.
Gotcha.
So anyways, back to this. All right. Number one, they said Wikipedia was the big one. And first off, if you got caught copying on Wikipedia, you're an idiot. Because they literally source everything right in Wikipedia. Yeah. So take the one extra step and click on the little number, and it takes you to the source, and you can properly cite your paper.
It's actually like a bibliography in a sense.
It's amazing resource if you know how to use it and you're not dumb enough.
Unless you're anti-establishment. Because if we had a Wikipedia page, it would not shed us in a good light. Well, at least me, I know for sure.
I mean, come on. We could make our own Wikipedia page and make it very, very flattering.
Did you see my prop?
I did. I saw that when I sat down. But for this, I do think the idea of I think it's an inevitability that the trends that we're heading on. I am terrified of AI on a personal level. I will be the first one to tell you, I think historically speaking, when human beings start meddling with things they don't understand, they never get it right the first try.
So are you saying there's going to be an AI-like version of Jurassic Park coming?
Maybe. I'm not ruling it out. I did see something that they just put dinosaur teeth on a chicken or something like that. Like, that seems like a terrible idea. Scientists, you're really been downhill ever since 2019, if we're being honest, okay? But that aside, I'm nervous about AI because I don't think we understand it, and I think you're inviting a very, very profound level of power into the world that we're not equipped to handle. But I also don't see us stopping, so it is what it is. I think that having AI write term papers will eventually be commonplace because AI is going to be able to do things in a superior fashion to what human beings can do in that regard. However, I think it's bad because I think that the reason that you write a paper is to learn how to write, is to learn how to communicate, is to learn a subject. And I think kids that cheat, and listen, don't get me wrong, I was no angel in school. I just didn't understand the concept of why we learn. I was just trying to get a grade. So if I could cut some corners, I was cutting some corners. If I could do whatever I needed to do to get my A, that's what was going to happen, with no appreciation for it's the process that is the point. It is learning how to do this and learning how to go find stuff and diving deeper and seeing where this is going to take you to get a better understanding of your subject so you have greater knowledge. And I think anything that shortcuts that is not ideal because I do think even if you look around the world today, people do not have anywhere near the depth of understanding in subjects that they once had. And instead, everybody knows a little bit about everything because it's just everything is surface level. And Norm Macdonald had a great bit in his last Netflix special where he goes, it used to be that if you met somebody that had a strong opinion on 6 things, you'd be like, wow, that's an opinionated son of a bitch. So he knows about everything. Now, everybody has a strong, cemented opinion on at least 25 different subjects, even though they don't really grasp the full depth of any of them. And I think that's bad. And I think that's a direct result of because things have become easier in this regard, it's a negative overall for the society at large.
I blame headline writers because nobody reads anything. They just read the headlines. So it's literally just it's opinions formed by headlines. And
it's because people think that they want everything to be simple. We want everything to be black and white. And there's no
confirmation bias is welcoming, comforting.
Yes. And I think because people grew up in our current education system where literally the only thing that mattered was the grade. Like, I never got told by a teacher, look, you got to learn how to learn, and you want to learn just for the sake of learning. It's you got to get into college, so you need better grades. And then you're going to have a successful career because you got into college. So it was like, well, if I just need the good grades, why am I bothering to do anything extra? And now it's like that mentality has permeated through our entire society because if you talk to somebody you haven't seen in a couple of months, like, what do you got going on? Like, oh, I just signed up for some adult online education courses. I'm going in person just to go learn about economics and this. Your first question is, oh, why would you want to do that? And it's like we live in this time of unparalleled access to information, education, and knowledge. But societally, we view voluntary learning as like bad. Maybe not bad, but weird. That's a sad indictment of our current education system. And I think the more that you try to control it, the more you're going to get that. So whatever's going to result in people understanding things to a greater depth and level, I'm on board for. Just stop trying to know something about everything. Learn a lot about one or two things and be really good at that. You'll be a happier person.
Yeah. So, again, I don't know where this is all going as far as AI in school and whatnot, but it would be, I don't know about embracing it is the right thing, but I feel like
accepting it.
Yeah, they at least figure out a way to coexist, right? I mean, this is not it's not going away, as you point out, I don't think, anyway. So,
you can't stop the progress that they're making. Like, you can't just say, hey, guys, let's put this thing back. It's coming. So the idea that you're going to just be able to, it's the same as teaching kids about abstinence only for sex education of like, okay, fine, but at some point they're going to realize that there's more to it than this. And if you're not prepared for it, this is how things go very, very badly.
And if you do it wrong, then that's a scar going forward on you trying to explain other things to them, right? So, like, whatever. We'll figure out how maybe maybe someday we'll figure, when we get Chat GPT up and running, we'll do a little segment where we actually enter some data into the AI and see what spits out at us. We'll talk about the show and me and you, our life stories. The story about Shawn and Ben.
Listen,
it's going to be terrible.
No, I don't want it. When the war starts, I want AI to know as little about me as possible.
Maybe we'll
I'm
next.
just kidding.
If
I
we
don't
get
really
it,
think that's going to happen.
We'll write a thing about how Thomas Massie becomes Speaker of the House. That'd be fun. So maybe you guys paid attention to some politicking going on over the last week. We have a Speaker of the House. Congress is
Thank God
is up and running at this point. We have new members sworn in, and we have a Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, after 15 votes, finally secures his speakership for the 118th Congress, but not without major concessions. Now, let's talk about general big picture stuff about this first and foremost, I guess. Congress has been broken since Paul Ryan basically removed the ability for individual members of the House to be able to put forth amendments, by themselves without being pre-screened, basically, right?
Yeah.
So, on spending bills. So basically, the one function of the House, controlling the purse strings, the main function of the House, has been basically left at the feet and the desks of insiders and leadership for going on 10 years now. That is no longer the case if the rules package that is proposed and was negotiated between the Freedom House or the House Freedom Caucus and Kevin McCarthy or leadership / I'm sure there were other people in the negotiations on top of Kevin McCarthy, but some concessions that I feel like might actually bring back at least a resemblance of a functioning Congress, something where individual members might actually be able to have genuine input and represent their constituents. Now, this House Freedom Caucus, this revolt started with 20 members. Actually, it started with 19 members on the very first vote, and then picked up a 20th on the second vote, and then picked up a present vote on the third or fourth vote. So they ended up having 21 people who were not voting for Kevin McCarthy, which basically allowed them to have infinite number of House votes until somebody got a majority, right? So you had to get a majority. It was not a plurality. So it didn't matter that Hakeem Jeffries won the first 13 votes. He didn't have the majority either. So Matt Gaetz and specifically Matt Gaetz, I guess, kind of took the role of, if you were going to look at a figurehead for the revolt, it was Matt Gaetz and maybe Lauren Boebert as well. But there were other people, and I re-listened to a interview with Thomas Massie this morning that I listened to after day 2 of voting, so they still hadn't had a speaker at this time. And at that time, I was still perplexed on why Thomas Massie was voting for Kevin McCarthy, since he led the last 3 speaker revolts, including one against Kevin McCarthy that was successful, right? I was like, okay, this makes no sense to me, so I have to figure out why Massie is voting for McCarthy. Turns out, single-handedly, but with great influence, was negotiating back and forth between Kevin McCarthy and the House Freedom Caucus. So he was actually the go-between in a lot of these discussions. And in this interview, he was very partial to the group of 20 or so, whatever it was, that were trying to facilitate rules changes for a functioning House. Not just the Never Kevin guys, the Matt Gaetz, Boeberts of those in the world. Which I think there were 4 or 5, maybe 6 of those who were just never Kevins ever. They eventually voted present, allowing McCarthy to win the majority because present votes basically remove yourself from the overall total vote count.
Like a walk in baseball. It doesn't
Right.
count for your average or against it.
Yeah, so those never Kevins never voted for Kevin, but they conceded to the rules change faction of that 20, allowing for what I think are some pretty significant changes here. And I see you have them pulled up here, and I just want to touch on a couple real quick, and then I'll let you go into some of them in more detail. But the very first one, which was Thomas Massie's rule that removed John Boehner as Speaker, is the same one that McCarthy has agreed to adopt in this rules package, was any single member of the House on any given day during session can walk up to the gavel and institute initiate a vote against the speaker. And all that person would need is all the Democrats and 6 Republicans to oust Kevin McCarthy or any existing speaker, but in this case, Kevin McCarthy, and therefore causing a whole nother speaker vote where nothing else could happen until they had another speaker vote. So that alone, if adopted, and again, I don't know the inner workings and how these things are, agreed upon, and how there's going to have to be some vote on these rules package. So
right.
It's not a formality that this is not already a given. There has to be some kind of move forward with these rules. But if the rules are in place, and starting with just that ability to vacate the speaker with one member, and how precarious Kevin McCarthy must know his speakership would be if he really, went against a lot of the members of his own caucus here, I think we might actually have the first functioning Congress, and I say functioning loosely and in quotes, and like I said, almost a decade. So why don't you go through some of the list of concessions that Kevin McCarthy gave the House Freedom Caucus?
All right. So number one, when you said significant, you meant common sense, right?
I mean,
all right. So anyways, here's what's in play. Jeffersonian motion to vacate the chair. This allows a single person to make the motion to remove the speaker if he goes back on his word or policy agenda. That's what you were just discussing.
Yeah.
Next, a, quote, church, end quote, style committee. This allows us to look into the weaponization of organizations like the FBI against the American people.
And real quickly, we can touch on this a little bit more too, but Massey has agreed to serve on this committee. I don't know that he would actually chair the committee, but publicly said to Tucker Carlson, who basically floated the idea of Massey running a church-style commission, so a Massey committee, has basically said he would serve on that committee. So that's very encouraging for me, but go ahead with the list.
Because let's be real, the FBI...
He's one of the few who I could be like, okay...
There's a chance this is
right.
legit.
And listen, and I will say that during that interview with Tucker, Massey said, listen, a lot of the stuff is intelligence and confidential, and it's not stuff that I can really talk about. But if I think there's something shady going on or sketchy, I will be the first person to come out here and there's something sketchy going on. So hopefully he stays safe. Go ahead.
All right. Term limit vote. Not going to go anywhere, but I support it. You should be at least able to vote on it and get on the record.
And let me touch on this too, because this is basically a similar thing that the Democrats thought that they were going to be able to try to pull off a couple years ago when Pelosi had a slim lead in her House votes, where Jimmy Dore was basically floated the idea of like, hey, let's force a vote on Medicare for all, right? Like, not saying that we pass Medicare for all, but let's just put it on the floor for a vote. And that's what these guys are saying basically here. Same thing. We don't know that term limits is going to pass, but let's put it out there. Let's see what people say. Let's have the debate, right?
Right.
And so I think the Dems, the squad, are terrible, right? Like, I mean, I don't agree with any of them, but they could have actually wielded some power in their favor if they had the balls to do so, and they didn't. They just basically bowed down to Queen Pelosi, and, now they all have...
For all of the positive press they get about being these tough trailblazers that fight the establishment, they folded so fast. Yeah. They folded before the first House Speaker vote. They were like, all right, I'm on board now. Oh, and now I'm all for dropping bombs all over the world, too. Like, you phonies, you absolute sellouts in the squad. I hope you all lose your next election. Next one is single subject bills that can't be loaded with irrelevant nonsense. Well, that is just shocking. And the audacity that you would want single subject bills to vote on and not 73 things put into one bill.
Right, and this allows us to hold our members responsible for votes, right? They can't dodge their voting record by going, well, I had to pass it because this was in here and this was in there and I just had to make the consent. Now we get to actually look and be like, oh, you voted for this, you didn't vote for that. Hey, now I can make an informed decision on the next time I go to the voting booth, I guess.
A Texas border plan.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this, but apparently the representatives in the House have put together a proposal on how they think the border should be handled, and obviously since Texas makes up the large majority of the border, they are bringing on this plan, and I'd have to look at it. I honestly don't know what the plan consists of, but they have adopted this plan as part of this rules package, and at least anyway.
Yeah, however you feel about immigration is fine. The current system is not working.
Broken. It's broken.
And it's being ignored. And it has been ignored ever since Donald Trump left office and everybody forgot that we have an immigration problem at the border. So it needs to be addressed. I don't know the specifics of the plan, so I can't comment on it, but it needs to be addressed. Pretending like it's not a problem will not make it go away. Next one is a budget that stops an increase in the debt ceiling and holds the Senate accountable. I mean, this is near and dear to my heart. I've given up on the notion of fiscal conservatism or fiscal responsibility.
So let me share this nugget with you guys right now. Again, going back to the Massey interview. And again, this was an interview that was 2 days. So there was still no speaker. They were 2 days into the voting. And this was during one of the adjournments. So Massey went to Kevin McCarthy and said this. Hey, let's pass the first order of business. We take session, first order of business, let's pass a continuing resolution where we fund, because the omnibus bill that was just passed funds the government through September 30th.
Okay.
So there's nothing that Congress can do, this Congress can do with the purse strings until October 1st.
Yep.
And this is brilliant from Massey. Massey basically said, let's pass a continuing resolution so that on October 1st, we will fund the government at 95%. So there's already a backstop basically put in place if there's no budget passed, that there's a continuing resolution that we are going to fund the government at 95%, 5% across the board, evenly cut across all departments, whatnot, right? Brilliant to me, because that takes the whole, they're going to shut down the government nonsense argument out of play. They cannot just say, oh, the Republicans are going to shut down the government. Nope. They're going to make the government operate at 95%. Like, ooh, scary. Like, I mean, most people be like, hell effing yeah, right? I mean, like 95% is barely enough to matter to anybody. It doesn't. And they're probably going to get away with not even operating in that 95% anyway. But the pure notion that they can just take that off the table as a public relations tactic of, hey, they're going to shut down the government, the Republicans shut down it goes off the board. But go ahead. I don't know if they're going to do this. I think that would happen today. Like,
let's hope so.
Yeah.
A budget. No, I just read that one. Ending emergency funding and all COVID mandates and funding.
Hella effing you, yeah.
So long overdue.
Yeah. Let me. This is a good time to show this prop. If you guys haven't seen this thing is great.
It's the Corona of 2020.
This wasn't even mine. I didn't even have to make this. This was created by a high school graduating class who couldn't have their party, and they had their party at our place, and we let them have their party, and they made these basically gifts to hand out to all the other high school kids. This is great.
It's hilarious.
Anyway, yeah. Class of 2020 grad. It says COVID-19 Wuhan, China. It's got the biohazard logo there. I don't know. I thought it was fun. But anyway, go ahead with the banning of the COVID mandates or removal of the COVID mandates.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree the emergency portion of COVID-19 is ended. It is endemic. It is spreading. It is exactly what you would have expected.
And I think this specifically affects, my understanding is the military, which would be a huge, huge bonus.
I mean, the military is going to have problems anyway. They cannot keep up with recruiting whatsoever. They're not hitting their goals. And now the idea that you've mandated these vaccines on the entire military, some people left. A lot of people got hurt. A lot of people are getting cancer. Like, you have a big problem. And the longer you, if you give the government more power in an emergency, everything becomes an emergency. It's that simple. And you're seeing that play out in real time. And the last one that's in play is 72 hours to read a bill, which again seems kind of common sense if you're going to come out and introduce a 4,000-page bill and then say we vote in 1 hour. And this is the problem that Shawn was alluding to earlier of there is no House representation anymore. There is team representation. You have the Republicans, you have the Democrats, and whoever is in charge, basically they negotiate at the top level and they go tell their people, here's how you're going to vote. Understood? And it's just too much of a concentration of power, particularly what is supposed to be the least concentrated power of our entire government is supposed to be in the House of Representatives. Those people are there to represent the individual citizens. The Senates represent the states. The House represents the people. And Justin Amash, your boy.
My boy.
Then you sent this to me. I'm just going to read it. Has tweeted something out about this. He said, concentrated power has decimated the House, turning legislators into actors. Here's how many votes the Speaker has allowed on floor offered, not pre-screened, amendments. So actually, somebody just saying, hey, I got a bill that introduced, and me as a member of the House go, wait, I want to amend that. I propose this.
Yeah, so which is how a functioning House should work, right? Like, hey, and we had this idea. Oh, hey, and then let's debate it. But go ahead.
Right. So in 2011, there were 414 votes where on-floor amendments were allowed. 414 in 2011. In 2012, that dropped to 153. So from 414 down to 253, or 153, excuse me. Then in 2013, it went down to 61. 2014, it went up to 96. 2015 dropped 94, so stayed about flat. 2016, it dropped to 29. And now I'm just going to read the combined number for 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. So once again, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. So that's 6 years of House business. Had a combined on-floor offered amendment process of 0 bills.
0.
That math was super easy, by the way. That's why I could combine all 6 years at once.
Your math teachers are very proud of you.
They should be. All right, you could multiply that too, and you'd probably get a similar result. So the idea that they, in 6 years, never have allowed this to happen in the people's house, like, this is not how our government is supposed to function. And I know the politically involved people like it better this way because they think that they are this air of invincibility and superiority, and they are the reason the government should function. The problem is, this is not how the government should function. And honest to God, I love it when the government shuts down because it's my best counter argument for when people want to argue with me about this. I'm like, all right, well, the government just shut down for a month. How different is your life? What changed? Because the government's been functioning fully fine, and yet somehow there's supply chain issues, there's inflation, there's all these problems that are hitting, but the government's functioning. How could this be? When the government stops functioning, I don't notice the slightest change in my life, period.
Yeah. And like I said, some of those things, so we talked about the multi-thousand-page bills, the 72-hour window and the single-issue legislation almost remove that the possibility of that becoming so cumbersome. Right? I mean, listen, somebody could still write some crazy-ass bill, I guess, that's X number of pages that you can't be reading in 72 hours, but it removes it. It's one of those things that's just so out in the open that you can't believe that you're like, how are not more people like actually aware that this is a problem and pissed off about it? And this removes some of that. So I'm trying to think. Oh, and there was one more thing. I didn't see it in there, but this is from the New York Post article. It says a promise to refuse any increase in debt ceiling in the next federal budget agreement. So there's also this agreement that they would not increase the debt ceiling. So, and hopefully that would be in somehow tandem with Massey's idea of this continuing resolution where they fund the government at 95%. So they can just remove all those debate or those talking points basically in the news off the table, and they can come up with new ones, I guess. But the folks, and most of them were, I mean, you had three factions in this in my head. You had the Democrats who were just pretending to laugh at it, being like, look at the silly Republicans, they can't even get their shit together. We're all voting for Hakeem Jeffries in unison because we're, chills. But that was their sentiment, right? Like, hey, look, we're all whatever. And then there was the group of 20 and let's say the upset populists who were like, hey, we don't want McCarthy. And then there was the establishment Republicans who were like, these people just need to get in line and, whatever, and stop embarrassing the Republican Party and da-da-da, whatever. And some of the people tried to make the argument that this was like, I saw Andrew Wang basically say, this is not how democracy is supposed to work. And I'm like, this is exactly how democracy is supposed to work. You're completely opposite end of the right opinion here. This is exactly how it's supposed to work. It's not supposed to be everybody just lockstep and fall in line because you're told to do so when there's problems. And clearly there was problems, as you just alluded to. There was 0 amended votes for 6 straight years, or allowed for to be an amendment. It was broken beyond under the current or the previous set of rules. It was not working. At least this gives us a chance. And I say us as the people, because now I can go to a Representative Brandon Williams and be like, hey, why did you vote for X, and hold him accountable to his vote. And the same thing, I can congratulate him on voting for something or not voting for something. It's almost impossible for you to hold your representatives accountable because their votes were obscured by BS that was just jammed into these monstrous bills. We go through this similarly in New York when they passed the budget, right? Here, every controversial or not slam dunk piece of legislation gets jammed into the budget, so everybody can just, they just remove any accountability for their vote. Anyway, so I'm encouraged by this. Like,
I am too.
I was glad that somebody actually stood up. Listen, it would have been somewhat encouraging if the squad had done this a couple years ago, right? Like, I'd been like, okay, hey, this is like
good.
Exert some pressure on the establishment. No, they fell in line. And I'm glad, like I said, Matt Gaetz comes across as kind of a douchey dude, right?
He seems so unlikable.
Right.
I hate cheering
You think
for
he
him.
looks like Jack Nicholson a little bit?
Like a young Jack Nicholson? Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, he came out, there was these allegations that he had involvement with underage girls years ago, and everybody was like, oh, he's a pedophile, and then it turned out there was no basis for it whatsoever, and I still hear that repeated, and I don't, like, it's the same way I feel about Donald Trump. Like, I don't want to be the one to defend him.
Why do I have to be the one?
Right. Like, you guys got to know that this is just nonsense. And don't get me wrong, the jokes are hilarious, like when they said, well, vote 17 is going to pass because Matt Gaetz is going to lose interest after 16. Like, that was funny.
Right.
It was well done. Not based in reality, but it was funny, and I give him credit for that. But I'm happy somebody finally stood up and said it. And I love the media trying to make this about Donald Trump, where they're like, well, Donald Trump reached out, and the people are defying him. Oh, my goodness, he's losing his power. And it's like, man, you guys still just don't get it.
Not only did they defy him, Gaetz nominated him.
That was hilarious.
Right. So
after he came out and said, hey, everybody vote for McCarthy, Gaetz is like, Trump.
Yeah. Which I'm sure is just a troll, right? Like, I totally, and a respectable troll for me. Like, that fine. Like, prove, like, he's basically put, how can Trump be mad at him? In a, whatever. This is all, this is all politics, right? This is all theater. This is all gamesmanship. But I'm just glad that Gaetz played along with it. Was like, screw you guys. Here. Donald Trump, how you like that? I
still think it's that the media and the powers that be and most people try to make Donald Trump to have way more power and influence than he has. They still think 2016, Donald Trump was the cause of the upheaval and not a symptom of the people already feeling like this system has left them behind. And it's not an inaccurate feeling. Like, these people do not care about you under any circumstances. They would sell you down the river for 2 extra votes without a second thought. And this is part of the problem of, unless you are, let's go back in the day, Paul Ryan is in charge of the Republicans. He's the Speaker of the House. All right, cool. If you are some newly elected congressman because you've decided you really want to stand up for the people in your district and you want to start fighting for them, you go into Congress and now they've set it up so that you essentially are going to fall in line with whatever Paul Ryan wants, or else you're out. And they're going to primary you. They're going to run somebody against you. They're going to try to defeat you. They're not going to listen to you. How are you able to represent your constituents effectively? How are you supposed to, if you're in some Midwest town in Iowa, standing up for your congressional district, going to have to sit there and take orders from the Californian Kevin McCarthy? Like, it's almost as if you have 2 different goals, and it's okay. And maybe, just maybe, not every political decision or political problem could be perfectly summed up and solved by one of 2 ideologies. Maybe there's a spectrum that we need to operate under. I don't know. There's 18 genders and 2 parties. That seems to be a problem to me. Like, not all of our political ideals can fit into either a Republican or a Democrat-controlled consensus. So the idea that we want to limit all debate to those 2 and the people at the top of all things, like, you're telling me the best representation that we have for America, for the different states, is Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer? With a straight face, you're going to tell me that and say this system's working perfectly. Now you're going to tell me that it's Kevin McCarthy and Nancy Pelosi are really the people you trust to stand up for the common man and woman. And this is the fundamental problem. If you live in San Francisco, if you live in Manhattan, your concerns, your needs, your wants, all of your ideologies are going to be very different. Your values and how you think this country should run is inevitably going to be different than somebody that lives in rural Arizona or South Dakota or New Mexico or Texas or some other state where you don't have a population density this bad and you don't have this many people on top of each other and you do have very different geography, topography, different people, different cultures, everything. And it's okay that it's different. We don't all have to fall into one line or the other. And this is what has happened to the House is it went from, hey, let's figure out what's going to be, everybody vote for what's best for your people, to everybody better vote for what's best for our party. And I don't care that there's 2 instead of 1. It's not. It's essentially one party with a tiny schism. And I think that is where the failure happened with the representation of the American people. Because you and I can disagree on a lot of things and still disagree with the Republicans and the Democrats. We don't see eye to eye on every issue. And that's okay. But we debate, we discuss it, we go back and forth. And even people I vehemently, adamantly disagree with their political beliefs, I still am curious to know how they got there, because I start with the assumption that you're not a terrible person.
Yeah.
I know it's a crazy notion, but I start on the idea like we all want a happy, healthy populace of people where everybody has a chance to succeed, nobody is suffering, or as few people as possible. We just have very different ideas on how to get there and what's going to be the most effective way. And yeah, it is going to be different depending on where you live. So your representatives should not be forced into one of two parties and let everything else die by the wayside. Then tell me with a straight face, well, if you want to change it, why don't you get involved in politics? Why don't I get involved with the rigged game where you have no power? And then when somebody finally stands up and says, like, no, we're not doing this anymore, we're changing this, they get vilified as like they're the ones breaking democracy. This is such a joke.
Yeah, and to some of the Republicans who are actually, well, I guess there's still people who are mad that Kevin McCarthy won, right? Like there's people who still think that the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Thomas Massie of the world sold out, and that they could have exuded more pressure to keep McCarthy out. But I'm going to go back to this Massie interview again because I told you he orchestrated just like Ray Epps, the 3 previous rebellions against the speakers, and one of them successful against Kevin McCarthy. So they outed John Boehner. Mm-hmm. And everybody was going to line up, and Kevin McCarthy was going to be the next speaker. And Massie held out. He orchestrated a faction that was going to keep him from getting the votes. McCarthy decided to not run and put his name forth. He basically knew he didn't have the votes and said, "Okay, I'm not going to run." And so Massie had organized this campaign around Representative Daniel Webster from Florida, maybe I think it was. This was a while ago, so I could be wrong. But anyway, I think it was Daniel Webster, and Boehner would not bring a vote to the floor, even though he had been, already been known to be removed. He would not bring that vote to the floor. And the next day they adjourned it. Boehner unilaterally adjourned the meeting, probably. And Massie says that this was the worst day of his life in Congress. The next day, he had defectors within his group who were willing to not vote for Kevin McCarthy, and were going to vote for Daniel Webster. And the next day they brought in Paul Ryan and brought him in, and there was defectors, and Paul Ryan became the speaker. And in Massie's eyes, was a worse speaker than Kevin McCarthy, right? So basically his idea was, hey, you might get what you want and not getting Kevin McCarthy, but you might actually be doing more damage to the House and the people's body if you pick, because Massie was like, I can list a lot of people who even have better conservative ideals than Kevin McCarthy, but are much more willing to flip, much more willing to sell out, much more willing to be a worse speaker than Kevin McCarthy. It didn't sound like he was vouching for Kevin McCarthy, and obviously he ran a successful campaign to keep Kevin McCarthy once before from being the speaker, but I think his point was, hey, let's take what we can get here. So like he was very sympathetic to the group who was trying to change the rules package, trying to bring the House back into some semblance of a working order. And I think it worked. I was, whatever. I'll say I reached out to Brandon Williams' campaign manager and was like, why are we voting for the World Economic Forum guy again, Kevin McCarthy? Right. And so his response to me was they were waiting for their guy. I'm assuming they were waiting for Steve Scalise, which again I think might not have been any better than Kevin McCarthy. Maybe he gets the number, but I don't think it really played a role in how the function of the House would have been. But this did. So the fact that they were able to get those rules that you just laid out, if in fact they can be instituted and implemented, then the House becomes a much different body, and I think we all win because of it. And everybody who was mad, I said I was purposely putting pressure on Brandon Williams, if you will, because I assumed there was going to be eventually a public pressure on the 20 as like the embarrassment factor, right? Hey, what are you doing? You're hurting the party. You got to get together. This is stop. And to kind of offer cover for the people who were never McCarthy's, like I think it was important for the public to put pressure on Brandon Williams, for example, in our situation. He ran himself as an outsider. Listen, one of the things we didn't cover here too, the Congressional Leadership Fund, that PAC that ran the Steve Wells ad, who basically labeled Brandon Williams as a liberal truffle farmers elitist or whatever it was, like some over the top ridiculous. That was funded by directed by Kevin McCarthy against Brandon Williams. So Brandon Williams voted for McCarthy every single time, and so did Thomas Massie, and so did Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't know if Mr. Williams realized the benefit or how the rules package actually makes him a more important figure and a better representative. I think it was right for there to be public pressure against him so that the public pressure that was sure to come eventually against the group of 20 was going to be, hey, you guys are doing damage, right? And so I'm glad that it turned out exactly the way it did. Whether or not McCarthy is the speaker or not, whoever was going to be the speaker in the 118th Congress is going to be a neutered speaker because of the rules package that was put in place. So kudos to those who again, helped. I literally think they helped out our government, and I'm not usually one to try to help out the government, but if I can get better representation, then I'm glad I'm taking it. So it's a win.
Listen, here's the flip side of that. There's also a lot of, let's go with like country club or establishment Republicans that are not happy with Kevin McCarthy because he gave up too much.
Oh, for sure. Some Democrats think he gave up too much.
Right. And this is like, stop having such loyalty to your party. I just don't understand it. Again, I promise you, these people will sell you down the river without a second thought. And politics does make strange bedfellows, and that's why I understand you're never going to get it perfect. You have to make concessions. You have to give and take. I'm all on board with that. But we don't have to set it up in such a way where the people have such little representation, and it's only 4 people at the top that get to make every decision for the 435-person House of Representatives. That is wrong. That should not be the way it goes. Everybody should be able to vote, and your party should be in line with your values. Your values should not align with your party. So if that just means you shouldn't take what your party says and make that whatever you believe. You should take what you believe, and if it lines up with that party, great. But on the areas that it doesn't, you shouldn't be forced or cajoled into voting with that party and against the interest of your constituents, and that is the system we have had in place for at least 6 years and arguably 20 plus.
Look how bad the video camera is on our logo.
You're terrible.
That's a bad camera angle for me. I'm terrible. Anyway, so let's move. Now that we have 118th Congress and everybody's been sworn in, whatever, we talked about the spending bills and maybe the ability for a functioning Congress to work around those. But the other thing they can do is some investigative stuff. And obviously everybody is, I'm assuming this may actually have overlap with a Massey committee, I'll call it. Hunter Biden and the Hunter Biden laptop, right? So everybody's been, this has been not a secret, not kept. This has basically been blared from anybody who will listen. The Republicans are going to investigate Hunter Biden as soon as they take control of the House, right? So everybody knows it's going to happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think this is kind of like other than, again, maybe the continuing resolution idea that Massey put forth or some of these spending stuff early on. Did you see that Kevin McCarthy said that the first order of business, so maybe it won't be a continuing resolution, but maybe it would be something similar where they're going to defund the 87,000 IRS agents as the first order of business. So
I'm on board.
Yeah. So
listen,
but I think the Hunter Biden thing is going to take center stage at some point. And
I am less concerned about Hunter Biden being investigated by the House than I am the House investigating the FBI, CIA, and whatever other organizations were involved in suppressing the story of Hunter Biden's laptop.
And that's why I say there might be an overlap, right? Because there's going to be this investigation of Hunter Biden from the House and the relationships that James Biden and Joe Biden had with these foreign entities. That's going to be the investigation. But there's also going to be what you just laid out, this Massey committee style investigation where they're going to be investigating the actual FBI and intelligence agencies, and they're going to find stuff on Hunter Biden because it seems as though they were actively involved in keeping that story suppressed. We've already talked about some of the Twitter stuff regarding that already. And so I'm thinking that the Massey committee would probably end up with a more I think the investigation that's going to come from directly Hunter Biden is always going to get labeled as whatever, a political witch hunt, regardless of what they find. But I think that there could be, what you point out, the bigger story of the intelligence agencies. And listen, I'm going to say specifically the James Comey, Hillary Clinton-led FBI and what they were doing with the Hunter Biden story, among other things. And I think that comes out of the Massey committee as opposed to coming out of the investigated into Hunter Biden.
Yeah, I guess that's maybe I'm making a distinction without a difference, but I think that the people who should be investigating Hunter Biden's business dealings and Joe Biden's corruption and profiting from said business dealings is the FBI, probably the IRS, and as it pertains to, China and other world actors that we consider geopolitical adversaries, CIA. The fact that they're not investigating it is worthy of investigation from our government, from our House of Representatives with its oversight power. Now, the fact that they not only didn't cover it, but that they actively suppressed it and took a hand in engaging and suppressing individual speech across Twitter, across Facebook, across the primary mediums through which people communicate is worthy of an investigation and subpoena power and really, really diving in to figure out, why did you cover this up? Why did you go out of your way to tell people this was Russian disinformation when you knew or had every reason to know this was legit, the information on there was accurate, and you just made this up to suppress it?
Because let's remind everybody at home that the FBI had the Hunter Biden laptop 18 months before. I think maybe it was, I can't remember exactly what it is, but almost a year before, at least a year before the New York Post story came out. So they already had, listen, if they're any kind of functioning body, they had already looked at the laptop and figured out, oh shit, this is real. We might have a problem here. Let's kind of whatever. And we talked about this back on how, even though the FBI had possession of the laptop and all the information on it, they were sure to put forth the, hey, this is Russian disinformation nonsense.
Yeah. And again, I don't care that Hunter Biden went around and made private business deals with people in Ukraine or China or Russia or wherever. It's no impact on me whatsoever. He's a private citizen. He has the right to engage in business. That's perfectly acceptable. I don't care. I don't care that he does nude sex tapes. I don't care that he does drugs. I don't care that he likes hookers. None of that means a thing to me. I care about the fact that he was working at the behest of his father while his father was vice president, and he was getting paid exorbitant sums of money and giving, was it 10%?
10% to the big guy.
10% to the big guy, which is witness corroborated was Joe Biden. And Joe Biden is therefore collecting money and never paying taxes on it. Joe Biden is therefore taking financial gains without properly disclosing them for his security clearances from the intelligence agencies. And the fact that that has been allowed to happen for so long is a problem, because it's not bad enough. And listen, Jared Kushner was handling all the deals in the Middle East, and as soon as they were done, as soon as that administration was out of office, he got a $2 billion investment in his hedge fund from the Saudi crown prince. All right?
Coincidence, Rebecca.
Wrong.
Coincidence.
That is wrong. But it happened, and it's happening right now. And the same exact thing happened to Hunter Biden. And again, the fact that, at least with Jared Kushner, he's out of office now. Donald Trump is out of office right now. If Donald Trump wins the presidency again, somehow, they better investigate what happened, between what deal was made between the crown prince. What did you get for that money? The same way they should be investigating Hunter Biden. But the problem is we are so tribal, we are so partisan at this point that everybody only cares about half of that. Everybody either cares about Jared Kushner or Hunter Biden and not about both. And now the fact that Joe Biden is still in charge of the free world, is still in charge of this country, and still has all this going on and hanging over his head. And the intelligence agencies are running cover for him with the American people. We all should be wanting to find out why. Because that's the question. It's not a matter of that they did it. We know they did it. I know why they did it. They want to make money. I get all that. I need to know, why is the intelligence community covering this up and suppressing the free exchange of ideas on public company websites? That is an unprecedented power grab by our government. That is insane. And if tolerated, will be seen as the turning point from which everything else got worse. Because if this is allowed, it's not like they're going to stop. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, and I'm going to fit this in here. So I've just checked Mr. Berenson's Twitter account. No update with the Fauci files here. Right. But I did want to cover part of the Twitter files that was released by Matt Taibbi between or sometime last week, I think it was. This is an article from the Washington Times. Latest Twitter files release reveals pressure to work with feds to censor posts from Democrats. So the allegation here, the Twitter files show that Senator Mark Warner, who is chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, when the Russia hoax stuff came out that Russia had aided the election, Donald Trump's winning of the election, Facebook, had that whatever, I don't know, $100,000 of ads or whatever come through Facebook to influence our elections. And somehow Facebook banned 300 Russian accounts. But because Twitter only had like a handful of supposed Russian, accounts that were trying to influence election, Mark Warner's was not happy with that number and was like, you need to come up with a better number. So the idea is that this guy who was in charge of the Senate Intelligence Committee basically said, hey, we're going to start, investigating your company if you don't show us that there are Russian, accounts influencing, meddling in the election coming out of Twitter. Like, show us the accounts. And Twitter was like, we don't have any. Like, we gave you all the accounts. Right. And they're like, come up with more accounts or you're going to be investigated. We'll find them, which basically means we'll, plant the bag of drugs on you and arrest you, right? So this is basically the threat from the intelligence committee to Twitter. Hey, come up with Russian attack accounts that you're going to ban in our narrative, or we're going to create them for you. So I wanted to bring that to everybody's attention because it wasn't just Twitter caving. I mean, they caved, but They caved under pressure from the intelligence committee, right? It wasn't like they were just like, in this case, ideologically in line with the idea that Russians were influencing the election. Listen, I mean, there's some merit to the idea that these Twitter employees, especially ones who are in executive positions, don't want their company being labeled a Russian disinformation farm or whatnot. So, maybe they were trying to hide some of these Russian accounts. I doubt it.
No, it's because, as it turns out, Russia absolutely did do these things. Like, and just like every other country does with every other elections. Like, you want to talk about how many elections our government has interfered with? I mean, we can't even say
all
interfered.
Of them.
Like, literally, how many we've toppled? Like, how many revolutions we've supported and supplanted and done all this stuff? It's
listen, it's all of them.
Right. No arguments.
Right. They influence every election one way or the other. Of
course.
Some of it's just direct money. Hey, here's money. Run. Like, we want you to be that now. When you win, let's get on the phone and make a deal. So
it's like we always sit there like, hey, this guy's awful. We need to have the will of the people needs to be supported. So we got rid of that guy. They voted another guy. Well, not him either. The people voted wrong, so we're going to help them get it right. Like, and it's not that Russia didn't do this, but it's not like Russia went in and changed votes. It's basically like what the Russian government and troll farms and all this stuff did. If they were American, would have been perfectly okay. They went in and they promoted the hell out of something. They were trying to sow division and everything else. It's the infamous story of where they organized two sides. They organized a protest and a counter-protest on social media, which, I admit it, it's funny. It's kind of funny that they actually did this. But how many people could say that their view of this opinion was drastically swayed by Facebook ads? Like, I was going to vote for Hillary Clinton until I saw these ads on Facebook, and then I was like, you know what? Trump's my guy. I didn't think about that before. Like, it's all based on the assumption that we are stupid. It's every one of these allegations is predicated on the notion that we are too stupid to make up our own educated decisions and be correct. It's that we are so prone to misinformation from the Russian government that they bought $1 million worth of Facebook ads. And that is what made the people vote for Donald Trump instead of Hillary Clinton. Not the fact that we've had just utter blatant corruption for 20 plus years. Not the fact that people are so tired of the current system that they almost voted Joe Exotic governor of Oklahoma. All right. Not the fact that every one of our previous 6 presidents, it probably goes further back, has grossly expanded the power of the executive to beyond any consideration of what it should have been when it was designed as an office. No. It was the Russians. Oh, my God.
All right. Before we wrap up, we have one more story to cover here, which is going to be a truncated story, to be continued. I remind everybody to please like the video here, wherever you're listening, Rumble or YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel. And share the video. It helps us. And again, I don't know, leave us a comment. Do you think, here's the question of the day. Were you happy that the 20 legislators, are you happy with the results of the speaker?
How about, are you happy that it happened this way?
That's what I'm saying. Are you happy with the results, right? Like whether or not it's you're happy Kevin McCarthy got in there. Are you happy with the rules package? But are you happy with the results that are in place? Are you happy with the route? Leave a comment in the below the video here. So, which brings us to Alex Berenson, Mr. Hussong, one of our longtime sources here, especially regarding COVID, the vaccines, and one Dr. Anthony Fauci, who. Remember, we were teased last show. We mentioned that Elon Musk said later this week we were going to get the Fauci files. Well, we're a week later, and we still have not received the Fauci files, but we do know who has the Fauci files. From Alex Berenson, this is was posted January 6th, so Friday. Guess who's coming to dinner? The first meal is already plated, and it's delicious. Hashtag Twitter files, happy birthday to me. This was also apparently Alex Berenson's birthday. And he shared a photo of a Twitter badge with Alex and Berenson's name on it, and a list of search terms, including myocarditis, pericarditis, Walensky, Fauci. Let me see what a Borla. I can't make out the one underneath the paperclip there. No, I can't remember it. Anyway, but anyway, so he's got a list of search terms that he must be going through the Twitter files and looking for material for his thread here. So I'm assuming that the protocol is going to stay the same, that these will be first released on Twitter. Again, I've had Alex Berenson's Twitter pulled up here the whole show and still have not seen any update other than him bouncing on Randy Weidgardner about being stupid. But I will say this one other thing. Did you see this? One other Alex Berenson tweet from today regarding COVID anyway. So Brad Lonker, or Lonker, I don't know. He looks like a journalist of some sort. Tweeted out something called the COVID cliff, mRNA COVID vaccine sales for 2022, $18.4 billion. Projected COVID vaccine sales for 2023, $5 billion minimum. I'm guessing most of those are under contract already, those $5 billion.
Yeah.
And are already sold and whatnot. Have already been obligated. There's no getting out of those, but pretty substantial drop. I hope I contributed. That's all I can say.
You and I both.
You know what I mean? So let me pull up Berenson's Substack here so that then we'll wrap up the show here and leave you all for a week. This was Unreported Truths. This is Alex Berenson's Substack. And so he basically said, this week I went to San Francisco for my first peek at the Twitter files, the company records on the government and private pressures it faced to censor free speech. So he's at Twitter headquarters in San Francisco and going through. Now, I heard Matt Taibbi describe the process that these journalists go through. They actually don't have firsthand access to the documents. They generate search queries, and the person who is generating the search takes screenshots of the results and sends them screenshots. Okay. So they actually don't have like they're not.
I got you.
They're not doing the search. They have somebody else internally is doing the search. Everybody's agreed to basically release these on Twitter and redact any low-level Twitter employees that might be caught up in the discussion here. But we will have to wait another week to discuss the Fauci files, Mr. Hussong.
Come on.
I mean, what do you want to do? Just wait here and can you hit up Alex Berenson real quick on Twitter? Say, hey, we're trying to do a show here.
No, I got stuff to do.
Oh, okay, good. So, all right. Well, for lack of a disappointing end of the show with the Fauci files missing, we will tease that out until next week, apparently, and we will go over those in depth on next Monday's show.
Sounds great.
I'll remind everybody that we'll have a couple more January shows. We might not have any February shows since I'm going to be in Florida, and I couldn't make that technology work last year, and I don't really know that I can make sure that I can work it this year.
We'll give it a shot.
Maybe. But regardless, coming back in March could be a kind of a tweaked show here a little bit. So hopefully have more interviews, a little bit different rundown, and some other fun stuff maybe we'll be able to add. So just stay tuned. Keep checking in with us. I'll keep you updated as we figure that all out. So on that note, Mr. Hussong, would you like to leave the folks with anything until next Monday? Anything worthwhile? Go Bills? Anything?
Yeah, go Bills. Let's go with that.
What do they play Saturday or Sunday?
Sunday, 1 o'clock.
Sunday, 1
Bills,
o'clock.
Dolphins.
Bills, Dolphins. Go get it. All right. On that note, thank you again for all tuning in. We will see you all again next Monday.